And moving into the main topic for episode 99 of the Security Token Show, we're going to be diving into the fact that some NFTs might be security tokens. You may be familiar with the term NFTs or this whole explosion of digital art where we have non-fungible tokens. These are representations of art and some of these things that have sold for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of dollars in some cases. And this scene has blown up in the space. But what we've also seen a little bit of is sometimes some of these issuers are trying to attach assets or some of these other rights to the underlying artwork, which could be a big no-no unless they're following all of the regulations and restrictions around securities offerings. So today, we're going to dive into and really set the record straight on what this stuff is, how it works, and how these two pieces can play together.
Let's do it, Kyle. But of course, before we do that, I think we need to make sure that our audience is all on the same page, right? What is an NFT, a non-fungible token? By definition, it means that there's only one in the world. There's only one token that can be traced on-chain for that specific use case. And in this case, the use case we're mostly talking about is simply tracking ownership of a specific piece of art or media or anything else really. We are seeing a lot of different use cases. We're going to talk about it. But most importantly, the distinction we're trying to get at is when we're talking about security tokens or even other cryptocurrencies, they are fungible. You can have hundreds or thousands or millions or billions of them, and they all mean the same thing. 100 Apple shares means 100 Apple shares to Kyle. There isn't one unique Apple share that we're all trading. And that's where we get into the use cases. We saw the rise of digital collectibles. The fact that I hold a trading card that's digital, that shows that I own it. The only way to show that is on-chain, showing that I hold the token. Same thing goes for art. When we have art online, that we're going to show that who can track it. We can all see it around the world. We can all view it. But who actually owns it? Well, according to the blockchain and according to the NFT, that's who owns it. And that's the use case for NFTs that has now led to sales, as you mentioned, Kyle, $69 million for a specific digital piece of art. We've seen actual artists go ahead and create new capabilities for fan engagement, like getting access to early music or being able to actually own art by the artists themselves. We saw the Kings of Leon do this, The Weeknd, Deadmau5 is doing this, many other artists are doing this. And we've even seen the likes of the New York Stock Exchange memorialize IPOs that are happening through their own NFT. Lots of really cool use cases that are happening in the world, right?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Some of these, hallmark deals, the NFT for an IPO listing of Coinbase, for example, is pretty fascinating. That's a cool representation of a historic moment. You've got some of these fan engagement pieces that are also very cool. You mentioned Kings of Leon. They not only did the NFT where you can own some digital art issued by the band, but it also could represent front row tickets for any concert for life if you owned one of these golden ticket NFTs that they launched. So there's some cool fan engagement pieces here that certainly have some value and are really fun, I think, for the communities that are participating in it.
One of the things that we've actually seen, as you pointed out earlier, the way the benefits to make these more feature rich and add value to the tokens overall is by adding things like royalties or resale rights, so that if you were to sell the token, perhaps the original issuer gets some money back from the sale, or even if you own it, you're entitled to someone else using the art in media or commercial purposes, and therefore you are actually entitled to some of those royalty payments because it is your media that you are now sharing and licensing out to others. Here is where we get tricky. This is actually what we might say crossing the line, if you will. We all need to get familiar, especially those in the NFT space, with the Howey Test. For those of us in the industry, we're all very familiar with it. It's the SEC's way of determining what is a security. The Howey Test was a court case way back when regarding citrus groves, and basically they set a couple of prongs that we need to watch out for. And one of those major prongs is the fact that you have an expectation of profit. So if I'm buying a token that has a royalty, or it's been sold to me or advertised to me as something that might appreciate in value, like a trading collectible card, we might be crossing one of those prongs. Another prong is the fact that we're relying on the third-party efforts of others. In this case, We might be relying on an artist or a marketplace or even the blockchain technology that could be considered as a tool to manage, creating an entity for profit, making business, right? So that's what would be an investment contract, and that's what the SEC is looking out for. And that's why we get worried about NFTs that have rights and royalties and other things that might just be interpreted as a security.
Yeah, the art world and collectible worlds as a whole have always pushed back against this notion that no, you're not buying into an investment, you're buying into a physical asset or a collectible that has intrinsic value and it's in low supply. So there may be increasing demand over time as other people also see value in it. That's kind of always been the argument there and how they've tried to stay off of the radar of regulators. I think what you're pointing out here is that taking it the step further by entitling those owners to rights to future revenue of what that art could earn, or any of these different pieces in terms of, we've seen some other examples of, the Club Necaxa, a Mexican soccer team that's attaching ownership in the actual team to the NFT, or we've seen other examples of real estate properties that attach the deed of the actual house to the NFT. These start to bring up examples where you're talking about a real investment contract. You're not only just buying this NFT because you like the collectible, you likely are also buying it because of these investment mechanisms that come on top of it. And I think those are two good examples we can dive into because one did it the right way and one not so much.
That's right. One recognized that they are absolutely offering an investment contract. Owning a team is an investment. The team can be resold. The team earns revenue from media and from winning leagues and things like that. So that's absolutely a business. And so Necaxa, they did it the right way. Even though both used the same platform, what Necaxa did was they said, you know what, we need to know who's potentially buying our security token, our NFT. And this way, they actually had investors register. They had to go through KYC, AML. For those in the US, they had to go through accreditation requirements, a requirement for you to be able to invest in this specific case. So they were whitelisting their investors, making sure that everyone qualified. I'm sure they probably had similar legal documents associated on that website that you could review regarding the investment opportunity. And then at the end of the day, the NFT, simply a token, I think it was on the Ethereum blockchain, issued on OpenSea, would represent that ownership. It was the proof that you as the investor were the owner, and anyone in the world could see that on the blockchain, which is pretty cool, on top of the fact that it had a nice little digital image associated with it too. On the other hand, we saw a real estate deed, as you were pointing out, did it the wrong way. In this case, they simply said, you know what, we're putting a deed up. Anyone can go ahead and go to OpenSea and buy our token, and they'll be entitled to 50% of the rental income that's produced by the property. Of course, there is no whitelisting going on. Anyone can buy this token, which means someone perhaps doing illicit money laundering or something like that could come in and now start trying to wash their money through this. And of course, the issuer themselves is probably violating a number of different securities laws. The thing that you need to know as an NFT potential investor, when that NFT triggers the securities line and crosses that mark, you may be entitled to all of your money back in the event of fraud or any issues or anything like that. So this is something that issuers and investors need to be aware of. And hopefully, we've made that very clear on this show today.
Yeah, definitely be careful and be smart about how you're investing in these things. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. We talk about, tokenized and fractionalized real estate all the time on this show. There's a reason why all of these issuers and all these players are taking the proper steps to make sure their investors are protected. That's something that you should expect, appreciate, and demand from any investment that you're making, and you need to make sure that you uphold that.
Absolutely, you need to. So at the end of the day, some NFTs might be security tokens, most are not. And most security tokens themselves are definitely not NFTs. So a very unique one-share kind of use case that we're seeing. So hopefully, again, if you have any questions, you learned something here, feel free to reach out to Kyle or myself. We're available on LinkedIn or on Twitter. Or you can reach out and go to the stomarket.com website where you can get the latest trading information, the latest news, as well as research and reports and information on our blog. And if you want to get that all in a nice weekly digest, you can sign up for our What's Drippin' newsletter and join us on Thursdays on Clubhouse, where we'll be speaking with other guest panelists from the industry, CEOs, lawyers, token issuers, about the show every week on Thursday at 5 p.m.
Check it out. We've got all the media. We've got all the news, all the content. You can find it everywhere, stomarket.com. Thanks you so much for listening. We'll talk to you next week on Friday.
Happy tokenizing.